Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I know I've been gone for about a month. Sorry about that. Um, for those who don't follow the Twitter or my Discord, I've been really busy. Um, I ended up doing 3 weeks straight at work with 60 to 65-hour weeks. So, yeah, needless to say, I didn't have the time, and when I finally had a night off, I didn't have the energy. And things are a little better right now, but I'm still like 2 weeks straight right now before I'll have another night off and stuff like that. So I thought, I already wanted to do a series where I'm covering the news and stuff like that. And that works well into something like this where I can just do it podcast style. No video for today. Some of these videos eventually might have actual video, but today, not because literally as soon as I record this, I'm going off to bed. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the whole purpose of this sleep talking series now is it's there that I can cover the news, find something that's important to me that like I find is kind of pertinent to the channel, maybe a mix of both, um, and just talk about it. Go unedited, make this all about discussions. So absolutely join in the comment section below. Join the Discord. It's lonely there. There's people there, but they don't talk. Um, so come join. Let's start have a conversation there. And that's what this series is all about: is getting conversation going. Um, It just conveniently works out as also being really useful for me for those times when I don't have the time or energy for full on recordings. Um, that said, a bit of an announcement. I am using a different mic than previously, so I'm still trying to work out the like proper like distance and all that. So apologies if you hear every intake of breath I take where I'm like, I tried recording this once before and it was right up here, and you can hear every intake, and it was just like, okay, no, I have to redo that. Um, Sorry, by the way, about that, but it was, yeah. So yeah, the kind of, you can see that like I'm kind of rambling here. This is going to be one of the downsides, if you will, for this one. I am very neurodivergent, and my mind works in weird ways, and sometimes I go off tangents. Anyways, the topic today for those who didn't actually see the channel is the title card is what exactly is an RPG? Um, and that may seem like just a random question, but there's two areas that I'm coming from with this. Coming from the channel side, for those who watch my streams, you've probably seen me talking to Autumn, and she often will bring up, "Hey, why don't you play this game?" or "Why don't you play this game?" And sometimes it's like, "Well, why don't you play The Sims 4? When are you going to play The Sims 4?" And it's like, The Sims is a sim game, but it's not an RPG game. And I'm trying to do because it's so small. We want to build up keep it in the niche that we've built with like the RPGs and like the farm sim, farm or crafting life sim kind of thing. Um, because if I go too drastically different, like one day I play Rune Factory and the next day I'm playing Dark Souls, those are going to have two very different audiences, and there's not, the videos are not going to go work together well. I've seen other creators create separate channels to separate content like that because, like, they have the Trail series videos, and then they have like their Atlas and Persona stuff, and like even that they're both RPGs, but they're like, oh nope, we're gonna split that because the people who come for this series don't come for this series, kind of thing. But also because for the last almost 6 months now, 5 6 months, there's been this debate over the term JRPG. For those not to know, back in February, Naoki Yoshida, also known as Yoshi-p, who is a producer on Final Fantasy 16, was being interviewed by what was the company? Skill Up. I was about to say Switch Up. I knew it wasn't Switch Up. Skill Up, and they were. The interviewer asked um, his input on the current state of JRPGs versus Western RPGs, and he gave this very long answer, which is translator just kind of like paraphrased, saying that he just wants to get it across that his team doesn't think of it like that. And then he later came out saying that he and other Japanese developers really don't like the term JRPG. They think it's discriminatory. They find it's um, like that we're making fun of Japanese people, and I can see where they're coming from. There's a lot of people who think that what we label as JRPGs are inferior to Western RPGs. But like in the last week or so, you've got another Japanese creator, Hideki Kamiya, most well known for the Bayonetta series, came out and said, "Oh man, I love the term JRPG. In fact, I want you guys to start using the term J action as well." And it's kind of like we have this disconnect of, well, what do we do with this? And it's a curious topic. I mean, I remember back in 2012, there was a channel called Extra Credits. They used to be part of The Escapist when they were all about gaming stuff. Um, and they did I think it was a two-part episode, it might have three-part, where they're taking a look at RPGs and specifically, like, what's the difference between a Western RPG and a JRPG? And I'm not going to go on to the whole thing. Like I said, it was multiple episodes long. But after they analyzed what we define all of these, they kind of boiled it down to how the narrative is played out. What we call a Western RPG, they decided was a title where it's kind of the player self insert. You have a blank slate character that, yes, the game has a story, but you interact with the story in your own way. And it can often ways be like more open world style. Think all the Bethesda titles, the Elder Scrolls, the more modern Fallout's, even like the older Fallout's would actually fit that too. Whereas what they call they decided what we identify as a JRPG is one that has a more strict narrative. You have a set character that you play as, and it's their story, and you're just following through their story on their narrative. Think most of your Final Fantasies, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, um, the Tales series, Tales of Vesperia. You're playing specifically Yuri Lowell and the members of Brave Vesperia on their quest. Um, but one of the things that even back then the extra credits kind of pointed out is the terms of Western RPG and JRPG aren't exactly the best terms for these concepts because you can get a Western style RPG from Japanese producers. The original Final Fantasy is a great example of this. You picked what your characters were. You said, I want a fighter, a black belt, a mage, a black mage, and a white mage. Or, 8-bit theater. I want a black mage, a red mage, a fighter, and a thief. You picked your party, and yes, you played through the narrative, but it was still kind of open world, not as open world as some of the more modern ones are. But it was what we would later call a Western RPG. On the opposite extreme, you have games with more dedicated narratives and a set character coming out of Western developers. A good example is the Witcher series. You don't customize Geralt at all. You're playing his story. Yes, you have a little bit open freedom within the world as you go, but it's still Geralt. He's not your self-insert character. Um, so Yoshi-P's thing of art, a thing of, well, whether or not it's discriminatory is going to be in the eye of the beholder, unfortunately. Like we saw, Hideki Kamiya is a Japanese developer, and he loves the term. Um, and that's going to kind of getting into that like reclaiming territory. And like I said, I do see where Yoshi-P comes from because there are people who like JRPGs. Those are pansy games. You got to have the real one. You know, get you some Fallout or some Dark Souls. Like Look at how people look down on mobile games. Um, it's the oh yeah, like there's even this thing here that people still think that gaming is a predominantly young men's club, and it's like no, I'm nearly 40 years old. I'm not a guy. I've been playing games for basically all my life. I remember my first NES as a kid. I remember really old computer games. My dad was playing games, and I would sit in his lap while he played, and like pretend I was playing. Women have always been part of the culture. We've got content creators who are elderly women. Uh, I cannot remember her channel name. It's like Games for Dogs or something like that. Um, or something like that. It's something for dogs, if I remember right. Um, but yeah, there's it, and more power to her. It's the reality of the situation of the gaming community versus how we have this image of it leads to people having this elitist mindset. Oh, if you're not playing Dark Souls, you're not playing a real role playing game. Um, you know, there are people who would look at me down like pff, you're losing any kind of nerd cred for never like the fact that I've never beaten Final Fantasy VII. I've never gotten past Midgard, and it's not because I struggled with it or anything. It was well, not in the traditional sense. I struggled to get into it. I honestly feel that Final Fantasy VII made the jump to 3D too early. And the fact that they, constantly like you have the really blocky Lego style chibi stuff on the world map versus the more detailed in combat versus the much higher detail of the cutscenes. I was constantly getting drawn out of it. I couldn't get engaged in it because of the constant shifting in that. Whereas something like Lunar Silver Star Story or Suikoden, which has a more complete uh, graphical style throughout, I'm all for. There's gamers today that won't look at something like Celeste because it's a pixel start or Stardew Valley because they're pixel art styles. They're like, those aren't real games. And so when you have that kind of mentality towards, what's a real RPG, that I can see why he thinks it's discriminatory, again, to use the term JRPG. Um, but the problem is also, well, how do you define RPG? I typed in what is the definition into Google. I went, what is the definition of a role playing video game? And I pulled up several different links here. And I mean, I've got here's one definition that just says a role playing game RPG is a game in which each participant assumes the role of a character that can interact with the game's imaginary world. Now they go on to be like, okay, many are set in fantasy or science fiction environments, and this, that, and the other. But that first line of the definition, because everything after that is examples. Let me repeat that. A game in which each participant assumes the role of a character that can interact within the game's imaginary world. Outside of something like Pong or like a racing game, maybe, that's almost every freaking game out there. Super Mario Brothers. You are playing as Mario or Luigi. You are assuming the role of that character and interacting within the game's imaginary world. Mario Party. You are assuming the role of whichever character you pick to play with and interacting within the game's imaginary world. That is a super broad definition. Um, there's another one that is that was from like the site Tech Target. I got another one over here from Techopedia. Whereas a role playing game is a genre of video game where the gamer controls a fictional character or characters that undertakes a quest in an imaginary world. That also is just a very broad thing. I mean, this one does continue on like, hey, defining RPGs is very challenging due to the range of hybrid genres that have RPG elements, which is something I wanted to kind of bring up. Um, Older style RPGs, and this one has five, and I'll go over them, but older style RPGs kind of were defined by, I would say, two primary characteristics. A more complex narrative than other genres. Um, Not always like the big epic style narrative that we see more often nowadays. But when you're comparing something like Super Mario Brothers, giant turtle lizard man kidnaps princess, plumber runs to go save her. Legend of Zelda, giant evil pig man kidnaps princess, sword man goes to save her. You know, most games early on had very basic narratives because the focus was the gameplay. And you still see that somewhat even in more modern titles sometimes, um, where a genre may be more defined by its gameplay, but RPGs were always defined by their narrative. They also, what he's calling this author here, sorry, she, Margaret Roos, um, is referring to as RPG elements would be what we think of as RPG mechanics, things like incremental leveling systems, that don't necessarily have to be like kill this, get X amount of experience, and after X amount of, Y amount of experience, you level up. But something like Skyrim, or I think Final Fantasy II was the one that did it, where it was like if you wanted to level up increase your max hit points, you had to take hits, like to level up your hit point stat, that kind of thing. Just like the Skyrim system of to get better at the thing, you do the thing. Um, so that was that kind of a mechanic. But we see that in other games, The Sims. Going back to that example of, hey, why don't you play The Sims 4? The Sims uses an RPG style mechanic of, I make my sim go play chess for 24 or 36 hours or whatever, and they master the logic skill. The taking that RPG mechanic, what was traditionally an RPG mechanic, and moving it to other genres is another thing. There's other hybrid genres. Portal. Everything about Portal, if you look at it, it just the more base mechanical style would scream first person shooter, because the definition of a first person shooter is game in first person perspective where you shoot things. But Portal's a puzzle game. It uses the first person perspective and mechanics to play it in a different style. Screw with the whole concept of what is that, and it works beautifully. And that's why, like in here, defining RPGs can be difficult. That's why we're doing this episode today. So let's go down here the rest of her list. She says traditional role playing video games shared five basic elements: the ability to improve your character over the course of the game by increasing his statistics or levels. That's that incremental leveling system. A menu-based combat system with several choices of skills, spells, and active powers, as well as an active inventory system with wearable equipment such as armors and weapons. I don't know that I would say that in and of itself is a definition of an RPG. Um, because yes, this is going like the old style, like the old, really old school, what we would now think of as like isometric RPGs and dungeon crawlers and stuff like that, and turn-based RPGs. But action RPGs exist. The Tales series is famous for it. Um, a central quest that runs throughout the game has a storyline and additional and usually optional side quests as a definition. Okay. Again, that's more prevalent in other games nowadays too. I mean, going back to the whole narrative thing, I mean, we have an entire genre now, visual novels, that are all about the narrative. Um, so Yeah, and then of course they've got some of the rest of these things having the existence of certain character classes that define the characteristics, skills, abilities, and spells of a character. No, that's not necessarily like you use the example of wizard, thief, warrior, etc. And it's like, well, no, Fallout never had character classes. Um, Wastelands, I don't think ever the original I haven't played in forever, but I don't think it had character classes. Um, yes, some games did have character classes, not all. The Witcher is an RPG. Geralt doesn't have like the choice between fighter, thief, wizard. He's the Witcher. Um, so again, this is trying to be a more specific definition of an RPG, but it's kind of problematic in its own way. And I could keep going through a bunch of these definitions, but I think it's kind of goes back to like there's this kind of infamous kind of phrase we you hear it around now a lot more if you don't know the roots of it, but it's I know it when I see it. Um, actually came out of a U.S. Supreme Court decision handed down in 1964 dealing with adult content, what was considered explicit adult content. And when asked to define it, it was, you know, I know it when I see it. It was kind of like where we kind of got it. And that's kind of how it is with RPGs these days. But unfortunately, it's not always I know it when I see it. Because let's give a great example. There are people who would argue that The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, pretty much any of them, honestly, is an RPG. And there are other people who would argue that it's not. It's an adventure title, or maybe an action adventure title. Um, and both sides have full merit to it. I mean, especially the more recent ones from like Ocarina of Time going forward, every Zelda title has its narrative. Um, they also have an incremental leveling system in the form of, heart pieces and getting your heart containers, um, or the shrines in the newer two titles. So yeah, when people say that they think it's an RPG, I may not agree with them on that, but I see where they're coming from. Um, likewise, Astral Chain. I've heard a lot of people say they think of it as an action RPG. I haven't played enough of it to get far enough in and be like, oh yeah, yeah, no, that's an action RPG, or that's just a straight up RPG, or just a straight up action title. Um, it's Platinum Games, same people behind Bayonetta. It feels to me like an action title, but I won't say no, it's not an art. Maybe when I play it more, I'll get to the RPG elements because I've only done the first chapter or so. Um, but it's definitely a thing that like people will debate and argue over. And unfortunately, I mean, this is the internet. People are going to debate and argue over everything. Look at the ongoing debate that's been going for the last year over Bridget and Guilty Gear, because there are still people to this day who are like, no, 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 Bridget's not trans, even after the creators straight up said, no, Bridget's trans, and we've always planned for this to be her story for the last 20 years. Um, or arguments over character interpretations. And that's going to be a top part of the spoiler. That's going to be part of the topic for next week. Is that kind of stuff because there's topic like that in the news. Um, but yeah, I don't know how I would. aside from like those loose definitions of what is an RPG, that I would say to be more specific, because aspects of what, back in the old days when we had much more specific boxes before we built all these subgenres and started hybridizing everything, you had that very distinct kind of definition, like we saw with that second set of definitions. Um, but that has become diluted over time because of hybridization. And hybridization is beautiful. This whole channel is about hybrids. The farm life RPG or crafting like a life, some kind of a life sim combined with an RPG. And, you know, even within the games that I've played, there's different levels of it. Harvestella, the game that really helped skyrocket this channel. I mean, I'm still a tiny channel. I'm at time of recording less than 150 subscribers. But I remember when I only had one subscriber, and it was the cousin who bought me this very microphone that I'm recording on right now. Um, you know, things started to pick up when Harvestella came out, and I got on the algorithm with that. Harvestella is still my most popular set of videos because I'm one of the few people who did like that detailed spreadsheet on like how to make gold and make money within the game. Whereas some of the other games that I've been covering are ones that other creators have done more of, and they're going to show up more in the algorithm and so on. But like Harvestella was less the farming life sim side, more the RPG side. Um, I remember there was a comment on one of my videos asking, "Well, are there events in this? Are there what's going on with the social thing?" And I'm like, "Well, no." And I did a video responsive. No, if that's what you're looking for, Harvestella is not for you. If you are looking for that, here are some other games you might want to look into instead. Um, on the opposite extreme, you've got the My Time titles, which are more heavily the farming, life sim, crafting kind of sim thing. They have RPG elements. There is the combat and the leveling and all that, but it's not as detailed in the RPG side as Harvestella, um, or is dedicated to the narrative. It's like, hey, go build this thing, not go clear this dungeon. Um, Sometimes it's go clear that dungeon, and then you have something like Rune Factory, which is kind of dead middle. And I think that Rune Factory is kind of the perfect blend of the two genres that I want to look at. Um, I talk about Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is far more on the farming life sim side. But I can see people arguing that, yeah, it's an RPG. I've heard people refer to Story of Seasons, A Wonderful Life as a farm RPG. Um, and I see it. I don't know that I agree with it, but I see it because, you do have that incremental system with leveling up the skills and preferences of your child. You do have the tiered leveling of your tools. So I can see where people are coming from when they say that those are RPGs. I'm not going to argue with them that they're not. I don't agree with it, but that's their view to have. Um, I do think that we need to be better at when we label subgenres. Getting back to the initial, is JRPG a discriminatory term or not? I don't know. I'm not Japanese. Um, I don't personally take issue with it, but if the Japanese person says I do that they take issue with it, maybe we need to stop and go, huh? Maybe we need to label it. But honestly, I think even if he didn't, we could probably come up with a better term for it. Because, like I said, what we define as Western RPG versus JRPG is the labels don't fit well. We're getting Western RPGs out of Japan and JRPGs out of the West. That's a clear sign that we need better names for these subgenres. Um, and I don't know what those labels would be. Um, Narrative focused RPG versus self-insert RPG, maybe. Those are mouthy. I'm well aware, but I mean, Western style RPG is kind of mouthy too. It's a bit of a mouthful. Um, but I don't know that we'll ever stop arguing about this. I mean, another great example of people still arguing over something. Look at people still arguing over whether or not Samus is transgender or not. That argument itself first reared its head back in 2015 and was based off of an article from an interview from 1994. And yet I'm still every now and again finding stuff, you know, this year of people arguing one way or the other about it. Um, you know, I don't know that we'll ever finish this argument over what terms we should use or whatnot. And I think that as gaming grows, we're going to continue to create more and more subgenres, and eventually we're going to be like struggling to find labels for them. I mean, look at the tags on any page, for any game. It's people will tag, and some people will tag just the troll games too, which doesn't help any either because go look at the tags for some of the Atelier titles, and people will be like, "Oh yeah, sexual content," and I'm like, "What? No, there's nothing sexual about these games. These are as cozy, cutesy as they come." Um, so I don't have a good answer. Like I said, this series is more about discussion. Let's get the discussion going. Hit the comment section below. Hit up the Discord. Join the Discord server. There's about 4 or 5 other people on there, most of which are friends of mine who, I linked it and they just kind of joined over and then they never said anything. So yeah, let's have a discussion on this. What do you think we should be recalling these things? How do you define an RPG? How would you define the types of games that we play on this channel? Are they RPGs? Are they farm sims? Are they a hybrid of both? Do you think they should be called something else? Let me know, either in the comments or on the Discord, or even hit up my Twitter. But in the meantime, I am gonna finish this up here, start up the uploads so it can go live tomorrow, or by the time you're catching it, it'll be today for you guys. And then I'm gonna get to bed. So I will catch you guys next time. See ya.